open this session. And we are going to talk, continue during the Diabetic Foot Day to discuss the various aspects of the diabetic foot. And the theme for this session is regarding the international perspectives. So the first speaker we're going to use for entering out using your brain cells again is Karel Bakker, who is actually the legend in this area because he's the founder of the International Working Group for the Diabetic Foot, and he's also the man who organized since many years ago the European Conference and Congress in the Diabetic Foot. He is also the previous or past immediate president of the IDF task force in this area. So Karel, please.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. We were asked, and I think it is relevant to talk about the importance of the International Working Group guidelines, the international or consensus guidelines on the diabetic foot for 2015, but also in the past, and the European perspective. You know, guidelines were there probably already 1550 years before Christ. If you read this, and you all can read this, of course, you know, you can see that there's some advice about diabetes and diabetic care. And also, that's the translation. You know, it's just interesting to mention. It's not so important to really read it, but if you read it, after the translation, you can see that there are very old guidelines already. And also, that the Egyptians were the first to know amputations and prosthesis. So what we are doing since about 20 years is just brand new. But we started in the 90s in Malvern. And in fact, exactly today and tomorrow, there is in Malvern the 11th conference or the 12th conference. That's always a 2-day course in the center of the UK. Beautifully located in this Abbey Hotel. And we met there in 1996 with a group of experts, and we talked about getting together to do more than only meetings. So we wrote down objectives, and one of the objectives in 1996 was to create guidelines on the management and prevention of the diabetic foot. And that's what we did. We named an editorial board. And we are aware of the following, that expenditure on a diabetes guideline has the potential to be one of the most cost-effective forms of healthcare expenditure provided the result is properly implemented. Implementation is the most important thing. So you see here the first editorial board picture. At the left you see William van Houten, who has done so much at that time for the diabetic foot. In 2011, he was chair in Noordwijkerhout. Then on the right-hand side, you see Professor Nicolas Schaper and Professor Appelquist, and your speaker. I'm gray, but I'm the only one gray already at that time. But 3 of us are still alive, and well, William is also alive, but he's not the editorial board member again. So we have asked Ben Lipsky to man the editorial board, so we're still with 4 of us, because we still continue to write guidelines. The first guidelines was a booklet that was launched in 1999, and now more than 100 copies from that original document were distributed. And as I said, you know, it's nice to write guidelines, but the implementation is much and much more important. So we try to do that. And how it happened that we, not particularly as a surprise, but as a great happy feeling, these guidelines were translated in 26 languages. And that's nice because you can use the guidelines to create more awareness and on better care. The consensus development process is an ongoing process. It never stops. So in 2003, in Noordwijkerhout is a quadrennial meeting. Every 4 years we have that big meeting in Noordwijkerhout. we decided to continue to write guidelines, and we updated the guidelines. So we published a CD, 5,000 CDs were distributed, and in 2007 we did exactly the same again. But now it was based on evidence. At that time, it was mostly expert opinion, and it is based on evidence. And then, it's a long story, but it's true, we did again this in 2011. And we launched, this is the whole working group, 85 people, all involved in all these guideline procedures, reviewing articles. For example, we had for the first time peripheral arterial disease and diabetes, and that was quite something because the task, that's the intercontinental group of experts, manned with surgeons and intervention radiologists and internists, they did not dare to do peripheral arterial disease. Well, you have to realize that the classification on peripheral arterial disease on non-diabetics is based on pain. Rutherford and Vaudrin are based on pain. But people with diabetes, they have hardly pain or very severe. So we did do this, we did pick it up, we reviewed with the working group. I'm not going to tell all the names, but we reviewed 20,350 articles, and we ended up with only 29 articles who were relevant really to score. And what happened? There was no randomized controlled trial. So still, we didn't have much proof, but at least having a negative outcome is also an evidence. So we have to do better. These guidelines were nicely put on a stick. You see it in the right upper corner. All the guidelines, 260 pages, were put on the stick, and it was handed out and presented to the Vice Chair of the IDF, Dr. Wientjes, and you can see how we did this. Also, because of the success, and we had only 1,000 sticks, it's now a collector's item, we printed thousands of DVDs, and they were also distributed. And the guidelines were published in the proceedings, in Diabetes Metabolism, Research and Reviews. So they are on paper. Now, the European perspective. It's extremely important that we translate these guidelines, as we have done in the past. And in 2012, Irina Gureyeva, she translated the guidelines in Russian. But at least so important is what happened last year. And you can see Dr. Sanchez sitting here, Javi standing here, sitting on the front of this audience, and he did the full translation of the Spanish guidelines. And really, that's something. We have now these 260 pages and more and pictures translated in 10 languages from 2011, and it really pays off. So thanks to him, we have the translation, and probably thanks to him, we are here too. So thanks you, Javi. Now, the next meeting is in 2015, in May. That was the former Noordwijkerhout meeting. It's now in The Hague, a huge, brand new, splendid venue, and we invite you to come. But again, we need new guidelines. So we have installed for 2015 8 working groups on the following guidelines: wound management, infection, footwear and offloading, PRD and diabetes, and PRD and diagnosis and prognosis, prevention, diabetic foot ulcer classification of clinical use, also for the developing countries, and a document chaired by Professor William Jeffcoat on standard of reporting. And how do we do that? We have representatives to implement these guidelines in over 100 countries now, and they have to do the job. Coming home with the new guidelines next year, they have to install a meeting to pay attention to the new guidelines, and that is at least so important as writing guidelines. And you can read it all on the website, www.iwgdf.org, and we hope to see you And remember, guidelines are an essential component of achieving quality diabetes care for people with the condition. Thank you very much.